The incident first occurred around 2001 or 2002, when Sahana was in class 4, approximately 14 or 15 years old. One afternoon, Sahana, her mother, and her maternal aunt's daughter visited her cousin's hostel. The hostel was located near an ancient tamarind tree, which was locally rumored to be problematic or have something bad associated with it, and an algae-covered pond. As they were walking back from the hostel, passing by the tamarind tree, Sahana suddenly felt her body become heavy and mentioned it to her mother, who didn't say anything and just took her home. This was around the time of the Maghrib Adhan. Nothing significant happened that night, but the next morning, Sahana developed a very high fever that wouldn't subside with medicine. By that evening, around 7 p.m., her face turned completely red, and she was weak and unable to get up. They brought Sahana to the big room, the main house, and laid her on a bed, applying water to her head. Shortly after being put on the bed, Sahana began having convulsions. She was trying to rise upwards from the bed. Everyone became scared, as it wasn't a normal seizure, and she displayed immense strength, which was surprising because she hadn't eaten properly since the previous afternoon. Thinking about this, they realized something worse might happen. Sahana then stood up while still in a lying position on the bed. They were terrified and tried to hold her down, but her strength was so great that 5 or 6 people couldn't keep her seated. She tried to get up and leave, her face red. At this point, they understood that something evil had possessed her. Sahana's mother recalled her mentioning feeling heavy near the tamarind tree the previous day. Distressed, they were unsure what to do. They took Sahana to the healer, arriving in about 30 minutes. The healer was meditating when they arrived. When he opened his eyes, he looked scared upon seeing Sahana, even though she appeared completely normal. While the healer went to pray, Sahana remained seated. After praying, the healer sat at his place and began reciting prayers. As soon as he started, Sahana became strong again and tried to get up and leave. Everyone held her down again. The healer instructed everyone to step back and not touch Sahana, warning that the entity could transfer to them. The healer recited many prayers, and after a difficult struggle, he managed to expel the Jinn from Sahana's body and kept it with him. Sahana became healthy again after this. The healer later explained that the entity was the one with no head from the ancient tamarind tree. He then told them to leave. The narrator notes that if the story had ended there, it would have been better, but more was to come. Many years passed, and by 2022, Sahana was preparing to take her medical entrance exams. About 6 months before the exam, Sahana suddenly became ill again with a high fever and severe headache, similar to the first time. They consulted many doctors who thought it was a nerve problem caused by the stress of excessive studying. She was taken to a hospital where she was given medication that helped for a few days, but her condition then worsened, becoming much more frightening. She would have fever with shivering, but would sit up after about an hour. A crucial development was that she could no longer speak or hear. She communicated by writing in a notebook or sending messages via messenger. She described having a severe headache, feeling as though someone was grinding green chilies in her brain and mixing them in her mind. She began trying to tear at the veins in her hands and pull out her own hair. 5 or 6 people were needed to restrain her, and if her hands were released for even a moment, she would try to bite and tear her own hand or pull her hair out. Reciting prayers sometimes made her stop pulling. After 2 or 3 days of this, the narrator and others in the house also began to feel unwell. They remembered the old healer and sent someone to inquire about him. They learned that the healer had passed away a year or 2 after the first incident and had released all the jinns he had kept captive. They realized that the same jinn that had possessed Sahana before had returned. They consulted several local healers, but none could help. Some days later, they found a traditional scholar. When asked to visit the scholar, Sahana refused to go. They then made a video call to the scholar, who, from his location, recited prayers and blew on her, which calmed her slightly. They were then able to take her to the scholar. He recited many chapters, surahs, from the Quran, and engaged in a struggle with the jinn, eventually successfully containing it. Sahana was brought home, but she still could not speak or hear. She then wrote down instructions. They must cut down the plum tree in front of their house, as the jinn lived there. She wrote that if they didn't cut it, the jinn would return and cause greater harm. She also wrote that everyone needed to pray their regular prayers, and then the jinn would not come back. They immediately cut down the tree. Shortly after the tree was cut, Sahana's hearing returned in one ear, and the next day, her other ear also began to hear, and she was also able to speak again. The narrator notes how this was a deeply distressing incident and comments on the unusual nature of a jinn residing in a plum tree, contrasting it with the more commonly associated tamarind trees. He also mentions that it is known that sometimes a healer releases the jinns they have contained upon their death, which seems to have happened here.